Hi, and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. This is episode 4, and we are so lucky to be joined by a very dynamic activist for social change, and I will be introducing her. So let's start with this package is dynamite, right? She's passionate. She's a very passionate community developer, and like I said, an activist for social change, committed to having positive impact for underprivileged communities. She has a deep understanding of the challenges faced by marginalized communities and populations, and her striving is really to bridge the gap and create opportunities for growth and empowerment. She's experienced in developing and implementing community-based initiatives, and I can attest to this. She absolutely thrives at making connections, collaboration, and working with others. Promotes inclusivity, and she is absolutely dedicated to sustainable change to improve the lives of individuals and families in underserved areas. Now, this woman is someone I met in 2019. She is also a Tekano Fellow or Global Atlantic Fellow. She has worked for women on farms, and she's been quite instrumental in championing for justice within that space. And now she finds herself at Children of South Africa, and we'll have her talk about that a little bit more. But my guest is none other than Chaleen Arendse. So welcome, Chaleen.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for the powerful introduction.
You can't have anything less than that, right? To those who have ever met this woman, very, very, very passionate. I remember in 2019, we were meeting for our fellowship, and this was our year of the module. And Chaleen would constantly be bringing us back by going, we are put here because of others. We need to address what we've come for. So always someone bringing that back. And I think that for me was one of the things that stood out about you. But also, maybe people don't know, you're very good at listening and very good at calming a situation. So if anyone needs assistance there, she's personally helped me with that. So
yeah, I try to be. There are some cases I'm like, I need to be vocal about some things, and sometimes you need to listen to others to understand how they're feeling and how they go to life and experience life.
No, very true, very true. So I want to start with maybe you telling us about your advocacy journey. Like, where has your activism come from? Where have you started on this journey?
So Renee, so I was born on a farm called Prioritise, just outside Stellenbosch. I'm still on the farm. I moved away and then I came back. Luckily, I was fortunate. It's a state farm and not a farm owned by a private farm owner. So I lived on the farm with my mother's side of the family. And after the passing of my mother, I was adopted by my other aunt. Firstly, I stayed with one of my aunts, and then afterwards, my mother's other sister adopted me. And then while I was growing up, I saw a few things on the farm. For example, we didn't have a scholar transport. So when I was in grade 7, I needed to walk to school. When it comes to access to resources and access to services, there are days when we didn't have transport to go back home after we played netball or we played 1 or 2 or 10 after school classes. So I couldn't put it on words to say, okay, this is injustices, but I experienced these types of things. The one thing that also led me to these types of work, it is my mother walked to her farmer's land and she was unfortunately bitten by several dogs. So, and nothing happened to the farmer. So me as a child, I had all these different questions and things running around in my head. And I was very vocal in school. I was a prefect all my life. I can remember in primary school. So by then I already had those types of, I wanted to talk about how I'm feeling, but I also want to address issues in the primary school stage. And I can remember I was in so many fights in school. Like I was, the child that couldn't keep quiet in class. And most of the fights wasn't for myself. It was because someone was bullied, and then I found myself in a fight. So since then, something inside of me, just I could see the inequalities. I could see something is not right. And then the passing of my mother in 2006, The next year, an organization called Women on Farms Project approached our farm, and then where they recruited most youth and farm children on the farm. So I decided to participate in these types of projects. So a lady called Anna Lindoor, she was a project officer for Women on Farms project, where she invited all the children to come from different farms around Stellenbosch to attend these types of workshops. And I think my journey with them started that time, and then that is where I built my journey in understanding what is the root causes of things happening on the farm, why is things happening on the farm. And they took me through a whole journey where I not only dealt with my passing of my mother in her trauma, but also my own traumas while growing up on the farm. But also develop my own skills and knowledge around what does human rights mean for me as myself, but also the context where I was born and where I'm currently at.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that strikes me the most, is that it's a deeply personal journey. It's something that, yes, you speak about, standing up for the rights of others, and I think many of us within this space can kind of understand that, and it makes sense. But I think where you have lived experience, I mean, we have seen the work you've done for women on farms. We've heard about, the brutality of some of the things that of these women and of these individuals on the farms would have to go through just to have their voices heard. So, I mean, I know you've moved on from women on farms to Children of South Africa. Do you still champion for people living on farms, for against illegal evictions? Do you still do work within that space?
When I left Women on Farms, I think it was the next year, I was still actively engaged here and there with work related to farm workers, especially the farm next door, because I started a project called the Voice Amplifies Project.
Yeah.
So it's a project working with children, youth, but also the families in the communities that live on farms. So the project was looking into educational support for children, but also what other social injustice issues are being faced by the communities that are surrounded by my farm, but also the farms close by. But unfortunately, this year I decided to take a break because I experienced my own emotional turmoil related to these types of work, because I was currently working for Children of South Africa. I need to do the Voice Amplifies projects, and I'm also director for USAWA for learning and healing. So all those types of things also, I took a decision to take a break for a while, just to deal with my own mental state, but also my own self-care. However, I'm still actively involved in the community. I'm still actively involved with children and youth on the farm. So because I'm still here, so most of my work and most of my engagements is with the communities. It surrounds our farm as well, and also our own farm.
Now, that's really commendable that you are able to identify your need. And I think as activists, we very often forget about ourselves, right? Because we're here and we're meant to be there for communities, we're meant to be there for others. So I really hope whoever listens to this also takes cognizance. It's a difficult decision to make, to say, look here, I need to put myself first and I need to think about what this is. But I think it also lends itself to an opportunity about sustainability. So thinking about those farms and thinking about the Voice Amplifiers program, how do we then maybe go back and create some form of sustainability program where they run with it? Just parking it there, just because I'm thinking, there's such a lot of work to do. There's only one Renee, there's only one Chaleen, there's only one of any other activist, and we do get tired. So I think it is important for us to kind of maybe start our projects with sustainability in mind. I was going to ask you the next question about how do you compartmentalize, how do you kind of separate yourself from all of these things? Because like you said, you live on the farm, you can't very well close your doors to those kids, because I know you're very instrumental in their after school projects and in engaging with them and any other learning opportunities. So how do you separate the work you do for Children of South Africa, which is huge work? I mean, I think you're dealing with, is it 15 organizations, or how many organizations do you personally deal with?
And we have about 13. When I started, we were about 15 organizations. But currently we are about 13 organizations, and those organizations is after school programs, it's ECD centers, it is orphanage homes, and also schools. So we have about 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, our guest speaker in the previous episode was Asanda, and Asanda was actually one of your sub-recipients, if I can put it that way, or grantees on your programs. So, I mean, I've seen the work she does. So it takes a lot for you to kind of support that. So how do you, as Chaleen, how do you separate the work you do for children of South Africa or CHOSA, and how do you separate it from what you do on the farm? I know you've just said you've taken a break from the voice amplifiers, but then also the work you do for USAWA, because I'm with you on that on that groundbreaking movements that we're doing there, and it's quite a lot. So how do you manage to separate them, or how do you self-care within all of this?
So yeah, thank you, Renee. So I think it is in the beginning it was very difficult. I must say it was very difficult, especially when it comes to multitasking and taking up so many responsibilities. But just funny enough, you spoke about sustainability. So this last year we decided to let young people on the farm run the projects, the after school programs, the peace clubs. So we're thinking about sustainability when it comes to the different projects that we are running currently. But unfortunately, one of our mentors passed away this year, just a few months back. That is also one of the reasons I needed to just take a break, also and reflect and sit down with myself, and rethink everything, and just be honest with myself that in telling myself that I just need a break from everything. So unfortunately, I love on the not unfortunately, fortunately, I love on the farm. My door is always open. So every day, people will tell you on the farm, they will see children. We will play dominoes, we will play games, we will talk in general life stuff. So it is difficult, but I also have the discussion with the children and tell them, okay, today I don't have the time. I'm retired. I need to do some work. Work for my organization that I'm currently employed at, or for example, work for USAWA. So I really needed to sit down with myself and say, okay, I'm only available to do these types of things for this organization, but I need to, because I'm employed by Children of South Africa, I needed to be clear and say, okay, most of my energy needs to go into the work that I'm doing for Children of South Africa, because they're doing great work as well. So I think I needed to sit down and reflect and see, okay, how will I split my time? But also, how will it work? I'm fortunate to work for Children of South Africa because they're also flat structured. In the time and the hours is different. So here and there, I can maneuver some of my time for ASAWA, but also I know that I have deadlines that I need to achieve in those things, in the support for the different projects I need to accomplish. So I needed to literally sit down myself and say, okay, I can spend so much time with these projects. I only have time or energy to invest in the other organization. But coming back to my own project that I started, I just needed to take a break and say, okay, how does it look like for the way forward? And how can I also let the community take ownership of what we started, and how will it look like? Whereby we use the skills in the community to run the projects. And the project is not seen as a silent project or a mentors project. It is seen as a community project.
Yeah.
So we are planning for next year to rethink everything and see how it will look like, and then how the community can support and take ownership of the project.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. Also, then leaving yourself free to do other activities. I know there was a time that we spoke about what your dreams were around the farm. I think you wanted was the library or a hall or something. Have you managed to achieve that as a place for the kids to have after school activities?
Yes, we had to have access to the community hall. So I remember when we started, we didn't have any access.
It was your
So the
house, right?
community hall is now so the community hall is now being used for a church on Sundays. It's by the community when they want to have events, or they want to have gatherings or meetings in the hall. But the after school and the peace clubs was also run out of the community hall. But the dream is still to have an after school center on the farm,
Okay.
in whereby we can run the projects from from the farm. But the one thing that I'm struggling with, it is whereby, because of resources, it meant that the children needed to use my laptop,
Yeah.
my printer, in my resources to do homework, and then also the space that I'm currently in, because I didn't want to move printers and laptops and stuff to the community hall and then
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's why we just needed to take a break and see what will happen, how will it look like, and what other support can be used for the project as well.
Yeah. Then I just wanted to know from you, what is your, because I know you work endlessly with networks within your workspaces that you've been in, like we said, Women on Farms and Children of South Africa. But then what networks do you have within your area that could actually be supporting the work you do, or that or are there specific entities that you're hoping to reach that could make what you're saying now actually a reality?
So I have a good relationship with the ward counselor, like I mentioned to you before the meeting. So we have a good relationship. And I also tap into the kind of fellowship, the space, and see what fellows and what skills does the fellows have and how the fellows can support me. So I think most of my stakeholders and partners come from the fellowship in the space there. But also the surrounding. Unfortunately, from where I'm staying, there's not enough organizations that works on farms. So that is one challenge that I'm experiencing. But I do have a few stakeholders when it comes to the project. But when it comes to Children of South Africa and then USAWA, it also differs. It differs from the type of organization it is in my work, but also where the networks is.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, my colleagues also have their own set of stakeholders and partners where we can tap into. It relates to schools. It also relates to our partners. So because we have about 13 partner projects, we also tap into their partners and stakeholders if you need any support or yeah,
Yeah. So
networks or
I
want to
think
achieve a project.
I think we spoke about the farm that you stay on, because you stay on a state-owned farm, right? But would the resources be different from a state-owned farm to a privately owned farm? Like, do you find that the privately owned farmers would have invested in something like this, or isn't there actually any connections to that?
Oh, it's very much different. The only thing that is not that is similar here and there, it is you can see the vineyard, you can see the surroundings, it looks similar. But just for an example, so I stay on the state farm and then just next to about 2 minutes, like literally 2 minutes walk, there's a private owned farm. They're still struggling when it comes to access to toilets. They're still struggling when it comes to access to electricity and water. The housing conditions are bad. The labor rights conditions is poor. So you do experience a difference, and you can clearly see the difference between the different farms.
It's amazing,
So the
because I would
state
have
farm
thought,
that I'm currently staying in,
wow. I would have thought it would be the opposite, right? You would have thought that the state farm would be the one where people
no,
are struggling, and the private farm would be this place where someone that is able to put their hands in their pockets and say, "Here's this is serviced." So it's the opposite.
I think it also differs. Yeah, it differs from what farm you are staying in. Luckily, I'm fortunate the state farm that I'm currently staying on. It is different from other state farms. So all it differs.
Okay, so
But
that's it.
yeah, it isn't yeah similar. But the state farm, yeah, so it's private owned farm next to us. Poor conditions, living, the housing conditions are bad. Access to the water, access to toilets for the young girls, and they are still making use of vineyards as toilets. Some of especially
Wow.
the women and girls that I
Yeah.
work with. So our plan for this year was to even more in-depth sessions with different partners to see how we can address these issues, but also how to use storytelling to bring up and raise awareness about the issues that we are currently facing. So there's so much things that we still need to do. In the conditions are just it feels sometimes it feels it's just getting worse day by day. But yeah, so it also yeah, like I said, the first farm to farm.
I think what I take from all these conversations I've had with different women week by week is that we still have a lot of work to do within the space. I take it that the farms, mostly what you see is probably also menstrual poverty, lack of access to health services. I know of a few NGOs that go out there, but very few and far in between. And it also depends on the owner of the farm, whether or not they would accept them. And even when I have worked on farms with these NGOs, the farm workers are so limited in their time, because time is money, right? So if you did not do whatever you were supposed to do, you are being docked that money. So there's really a systems issue. But the one thing that I
Yes,
wanted to
exactly.
say, as you're speaking, I can clearly see it's very difficult for us within the advocacy space to kind of compartmentalize, as I spoke about earlier. It's not like you can be Chaleen for Xhosa only. You've got to be Chaleen for Children of South Africa, with my foot still on the farm, with my finger in USAWA, and still trying to make sense of Tekano and Atlantic Fellows and everything. So it just brings it back as women within the space and as activists in the space. We have all these different layers to ourselves, and yet we bring them all together. So I think you've showcased that. The one thing I wanted to say is that your activism has led to you traveling, right? To have to kind of also amplify your advocacy in different spaces. So I know for a fact you've been to Thailand as part of our convening. So that's one. And that's a global convening that we have for Atlantic Institute. And that was a once-off convening, which was great. But you've been somewhere else. I've heard you speak of it before. I think it was Brazil. Am I right?
I went to Brazil, yeah, and I really want to go back. So if you can sponsor me, I'm willing to go back. So yeah, I went to a convening that side as well,
And
where
that was
they
for?
look at the women especially, and also it was also a women convening, but they look into different activism, and how what does it look like in different countries.
Yeah,
And it was also international. Women from different countries came
yeah,
together and speak about the challenges, but also the issues that they are experiencing and
yeah.
how they are dealing with it. So it was a very powerful time in Brazil. So my dreams and my plan is one day to go back for a similar
Yeah.
type of convening.
No, I can
So I'm
imagine.
just putting it out there, Renee.
Yeah, to the universe. There we go. No, so I'm ending on that note, and I'm being very intentional about it, because whoever's listening to this, you might have walked past Chaleen before and you didn't realize just where activism can take you, and just the platforms and the networks that's available to us. And it's not always available, but these are the spaces that we can be active in. These are the networks we can gain access to, and we need to amplify those spaces and those be part of those spaces. So to anyone thinking about should I go down this path of activism? It sounds exhausting, because all of us are speaking about, caring for ourselves and filling our own cups. But at the end of the day, I think it is deeply rewarding. I mean, yes, you get the opportunity to travel wherever. It's not all sunshine and roses, but you do make impact. And I think that's what I'm trying to say, is we didn't go on these trips because we were ready to shop. We went there because we knew we have an agenda. We need to bring this to the fore. But the point is, Chaleen from a farm in Stellenbosch has moved in spaces. And so I hope whoever listens can hear, we need more activists. We need everyone really to come together to find a space and to work towards, correcting these inequities that we all see. I mean, you can't live in a community and say you don't see anything. And if you are that person that says there's nothing, weird or unequal or inequitable within your space, then I think you need to go back and look at your level of privilege. And we all have a level of privilege, so not throwing stones, but just be aware that there are people in need of support. And even that small little thing that you do, Shaleen's mentioned so many in this session, about the farms around her, about the type of situations that people face. So to anyone listening who's able to even change some of those conditions, who's part of NGOs that look at environmental issues or health issues, reach out and see how you could assist in some of this, because even that small little action means we've succeeded in this podcast, right? Yeah. So thank you so much,
Exactly.
Chaleen, for your time. It was lovely hearing
Thank
about the
you.
work you
Thank
do
you.
and just about you as a Shero. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much. So the episodes, as all the episodes, are found on Spotify and on YouTube. These release every Friday. So please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.